You Getting Expression Engine Back to Best in a Global Website Economy that I presented on October 6th, 2022 at the Expression Engine Fall Summit in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Thanks to the encouragement from my colleagues and friends, I'm recording a version just for video to share with you. If at any point you like this video, please hit the like button. I'll count it as ongoing encouragement around creating content such as this in the future. I'm here today because I love Expression Engine. And I'm really grateful for it and the impact it's had on my life. Expression Engine is the single reason I was able to leave the employed workforce in 2010, a choice I made to support my health and well-being. Not everybody who does what I do has such a secure, stable website platform to start a business on and solve problems with. For 14 years, Expression Engine has had my back. I'm grateful for the ways that it brings people together, not only conferences like this one, but in groups like Packet Tide to continue the work, the EECA Community Association, and the work that is done in teams all around the world. We have a culture of learning and help. I'm grateful that it's still here. I'm grateful to everyone who lets it be possible for me to build websites that are secure and scalable and don't wake me up at 3 in the morning. I'm grateful to a market of work that allows me to build my own creative thing and really be someone who gets to help people. Having founded a web shop where we use Expression Engine, I get to be someone who solves problems, who brings solutions to the table. I also get to be someone who debugs, reports bugs, finds bugs, imagines a life without bugs, curses bugs, and hopefully at the end of the day, squashes bugs. Like maybe you are as well, I'm a professional debugger. But going one step further, I'm a professional debugger who does a little study on stories. I'm not really a reader, but I look at data, website data, and analytical data, and this is what helps me come up with the bugs. There are SEO reports that I write, and I've seen some of your teams write, that are essentially bug reports on an experimental scale. Do this. What if we do that? Who is this? Can this be optimized? All of that comes from data and observation. And the story of Expression Engine is one of my favorite coming-of-age tales. I know it really well. I watched it unfold. I walked right up to the edge and witnessed some big moments in its history. Many of us, collectively who are watching this, care about Expression Engine or at least know its value. And I want to share that perspective that I have on Expression Engine's future path that I've collected and patched together in bits and pieces over the years. We're going to take a 3,000-foot view of what we have with Expression Engine and the ways we can change our efforts in marketing it to create what I think of as an abundant future. So let's go. Next year, Expression Engine will be 20 years old. In a very fluid industry that we have going of trends and upswings and those kinds of things, I think many of us can agree that this kind of market stability is practically unheard of. But it hasn't been all fun and games. Then again, no good stories are all fun and games. Expression Engine's story, which is at times tragic and at times triumphant, and has come through and rolled with the punches or, learned from a lot of changes of circumstance, personnel. It's survived tech trends without itself ever really being a trend and continues to have a niche for certain projects that I'll talk about. And I think that there's a lot of value to this story. So I'm going to sort of tell as much of it as I can, and for the benefit of the folks who are new here, and the benefit of anyone who may not have considered its value prior to today. But before I do that, I want to make one quick point about the value of stories. Stories are the most elemental way we as humans have of understanding any situation. Not everything comes at us as a raw story, but check it out. We make websites to define things and introduce things, which is telling stories about things. And then we collect data. Data for what? Data that tells stories and adds truth to stories so that we understand what the users are doing. At what point do we stop engaging in collecting data and working on questions of who, what, how, or why? When we achieve consensus between the story and our facts. The elemental product we have at the end of data collection is itself a story, which becomes the truth. And to get it right is the entire point of the effort to understand in the first place. To have places where we can convene about stories, conferences, or streaming video services like this create the possibility for communities to reach consensus about who they are. I mean, at Expression Engine Conference, we were sitting down together to learn and think about the same stuff all at once, to collect our thoughts, to collect the perspectives of others. After this, you run the likelihood of telling other people the story of how much fun you had, and then some, because stories satisfy us and they help us trust each other. I'm so happy to be a part of anything that does this. So thanks again to the EECA team and Packet Tide for bringing me in as part of this year's Expression Engine Fall Summit. Well, who the heck am I? Next year, I'll have 20 years doing websites too. I'm Caroline Blaker. Many of you have seen me around as Caroline C. Blaker. I lead Aquarian Web Studio, which is the agency that I started in 2010 under the freelance name Petroglyph Creative. My background in Expression Engine has its roots in employment. Like many of you, I came off of WordPress development when I became employed at a place that used Expression Engine. For me, this happened with EE version 1.6.3 in 2008. And that's 14 years ago. So for most of the time I've been working with websites, I've been doing it here as one of you. As I began to meet fellow people doing what I was doing, like you maybe, it became clear that my transition experience into Expression Engine wasn't all that unique. People who worked at the top web agencies knew about Expression Engine, and people who were onboarding themselves into websites, generally going to WordPress or Drupal, not so much. Again, this was 2008, and I start here on purpose because it was the beginning. What started off as a bunch of individuals on a support forum started to organize, started to meet up, started to cooperate, started to exchange money, started to become stronger and better advocates and developers for websites. In a way, we were like this college of participants, gatekeepers, early degrees, advanced degrees, student teachers, topic, water coolers, late nights, and of course, fun and camaraderie. How lucky were we? I mean, who gets to do that? At least somewhat less figuratively, we had a faction of creatively gifted agency designers, talented, energetic, and strategic developers worldwide. It was really special. Between the newness of this fresh community and network, but also just finding ourselves here with a powerful tool, everyone so generously lifting each other up, there was no figuring out what we had in common. It was massive, limitless, and there was room for everyone, and everyone was welcome. That, in so many ways, it felt like we had all just landed on this awesome thing together that was meant to be shared, discussed, and made to solve harder and harder problems. There were hundreds of us. While it definitely wasn't a total count, evidence of the many faces and the synergy are still present on Flickr and albums around the EECI 2011 event that brought a substantial number of us together for the first time. This is one such picture. Sorry, Les. But at least for a little while, this was the Expression Engine community. As it turns out, the more you promise and deliver to people, the more they want. As we delivered what the client wanted, time after time, the demands kept coming. That security, that reliability, that content modeling and authorship, we were hitting limits with EE software, some of which were easy to finagle, some were in that dark place none of us want to go. The human problem solving got very creative, and some of it got precarious. We had no choice but to seek out ways to respond to breaking this tool we were using with add-ons and demand of the core product. And it didn't really come to a head until some contingencies of our colleagues, many of whom recognized their own differences in ideal approach from the available roadmap of the authoritative body at the time, left Expression Engine. And this departure affected us. It was like there was no tool to really replace ExpressionEngine. So these folks set about creating ExpressionEngine replacements along their own roadmaps, but that's not all. That thing happened where, because there had been no way out, they had stayed too long, and so personal outlooks and expressions took on explosive, volatile, and personal tones, but sometimes were broadcast to a very broad audience. Furthermore, the would-be social traction gained from identifying with a newfound faction here convinced some among us who hadn't had a personal stake previously that the thing to do would be to jump ship. So we went through a period of time where our community began to vanish. Not only vanish, but reappear in a faction that had taken on the role of adversary, willingly and loudly, and there was nothing we, the community, could do to stop it. If you've ever had the experience, for instance, of being dumped and ganged up on, I'm so sorry. It's incredibly painful and traumatic. It's isolating, confusing, and it can make you second guess your whole life. And in real time, over a period of years, this happened to us as a community. For my part, I didn't leave ExpressionEngine because the things people were disagreeing on were not struggles I was having in my own work. But speaking figuratively, I found a wall to stand by with a decent view of what was going on. It was interesting to me because the thing with the ganging up was not new to me. This was only just the biggest scale I'd ever seen it happen to anybody else. When something traumatic happens to you, and then while you're still processing it over the following years, you witness it elsewhere, there's a couple of things that happen. You stand there like a deer in the headlights and just watch. It's validation of your own experience, that it can happen to others, which can normalize an experience and start the healing of a problem you may have been locked in with since your own personal experience. Then there's the doom scrolling, or in the forum days, it was more of the reading of the everything and wanting to know who is blaming whom for what, thinking we're keeping score as a service, or at least being shown the other people who we agree with. The waiting for the drama tornado to blow close enough for you to make a reaction, for you to react, essentially. For some people, this threshold was really low. For me, it never hit. I'm still waiting for any reason to pile on ExpressionEngine over stuff that happened at any particular time. For years during and after this event, ExpressionEngine developers were suffering embarrassment, or at the very least, risking an argument or a pile-on argument anytime we would talk about using ExpressionEngine. This dynamic was extremely effective in silencing anyone from talking about what they like about ExpressionEngine or even identifying as a developer. Even more effective might have been the chilling effect this had on new developers joining our ranks. That consensus thing that I referenced earlier didn't happen for years. There was just that awkward phase that happens when we're facing a gaping hole among our ranks and trying to heal and don't know how. I mean, we tried different things. We did our best. We managed not to get overtaken by some of the world's most divisive and extreme causes. At the same time, it felt like nothing was happening, as is sometimes the case with healing from something massive. As a cancer survivor, I can tell you firsthand that sometimes the hardest work looks like doing nothing. When you're exhausted and trying not to slide further into sickness, vulnerability, more risk, it can look like a lot of nothing. It's like being on a roof and not wanting to slide off. What do? You sit down, you lie down, you maximize the surface area of your body for friction. You're doing a lot right there, but someone could still see a picture of it and call you lazy, and there would be the sense that they are right until proven otherwise. So I want to recognize here that we were vulnerable to pretty much any direction, and we came out okay. We really did. Accepting the help of and working with what is ultimately not our thing, or in metaphysical speak, what we sometimes refer to as improper alignment, is the laboratory or the playground of healing from and overcoming negative experiences. It's going to be what shows you your boundaries, your resolve, where you want to go, and whom you are willing to meet. Today, we are here as a community of peers coming to a consensus for new boundaries and a new path to health. And let me tell you, I'm excited about what we have to look forward to. Today, these stressors are gone. Well, mostly gone. There's very little left of what was there, and that is fragmented into a handful of opinions and residual memories. The community is friendly and willing, and ExpressionEngine is in good hands. It's moving forward. The problems are smaller and not the same. As a person who has settled on the idea that being heart-centered and present in the moment is the way to be, having learned this from a whole bunch of trauma, both personally and as a witness, it's my utter privilege to be standing here detailing how far we've made it out of this mess. We no longer have the same dependency limits, authority limits, perspective limits, experience limits, or vulnerabilities that added up to change everything around 10 years ago. The last thing left to do is shift into what today's ExpressionEngine is now and how it solves today's web challenges. Some of us have arrived here. Some of us need to catch up. Some of us aren't sure what this is. Regardless of what I have to say, I hope a consensus has been reached at the ExpressionEngine Summit, which was really good, by the way, and we have the benefit of that additional perspective going forward. We have incredible potential in ExpressionEngine as a tool. Take that and apply our community reach, our abilities, and what we've been through. Folks, we have it all, and it's time to get the show on the road. Okay, so here's where the information shifts from perspective to intent and action. What I would like to see ExpressionEngine do to get back to best is grow. Going up to about 3,000 feet, we know that the way that in this industry that you grow in market share, industry regard, revenue is to solve problems. Not just any problems, the ones for which we are particularly well suited, positioned for, good at, with the largest impact. So that kind of narrows it down quite a bit. There's got to be one problem that maximizes these factors if we could just figure out what it was. Going back to what we have a unique tool in the industry. ExpressionEngine brings a ton of stuff to the table and addresses so many concerns that popular website platforms like WordPress just do not, even while both platforms are made of the exact same stuff. In fact, it's so normal not to cover the items on this slide that they're usually only demanded by clients who have had a website for a long time that is at least somewhat successful in its mission. And because of the numbers WordPress has, chances are it's there. We're easier to develop than WordPress, more secure, doing literally nothing out of the box. And then there's small adjustments, yada, yada. You've heard this before. We're not completely set up like WordPress is on install, but that takes about 2 hours, so it's kind of negligible. Because WordPress is our industry's 800-pound gorilla, in the early days of this, WordPress was free, pretty well documented, and versus us who was charging $250 a license. Let me just say one thing, that if you know nothing about a thing, the free option's usually good enough. It's perfectly inviting, especially with the specter of completion and success already demonstrated on the other side. In the case of WordPress adoption, that thing is trying to make a website for the first, second, or third time. Its design and strategy for onboarding developers is one of the industry's biggest success stories. And in case you haven't observed this before, clients do follow developers. Here's the thing. There's no consensus or agreed upon way out of WordPress. I did a bit of fun digging here. Let's check it out. And what I did here does not really count as research. I didn't repeat this question all over the place. I didn't get consensus. I kind of looked around for this question being answered literally anywhere. And the only thing I got were the Google results of high-dollar pay-per-click ads. That wasn't really the answer I was looking for. so I decided to pose the question myself and see what happened. Quora is a Q&A site where you can register and then your opinions count as facts. There's an active contingency of WordPress developers, clients, and community going there to figure things out for themselves. Since you're still supposed to ask questions there and they show up well on search, I thought it would be an appropriate place to get this party started. I figured either there would be some kind of established way out of WordPress that I could compare ExpressionEngine to, or like multiple options, or at least like an old convention that had some kind of roots or something. But so I asked, and the answer I got was block bots and debug in WordPress. When I'm debugging, I often feel like if I can't Google my problem and come up with something, then the answer to my issue is to check for syntax errors because it's incidental and not a pattern. That's very much the inverse of this particular take on having a site that's too heavy a lift for WordPress. As long as there are no answers, it's not a problem. And it's just up to you to come up with a fix. It's funny because this authoritative take smells a lot like the one on ExpressionEngine's own boundaries 10 years ago, which caused the event that set forth the entire topic I'm speaking about. While being cool, not speaking up, avoiding arguments about ExpressionEngine, there are people out here who don't have any true information that's good enough to speak up on. And that's good enough to speak up on. This is also from Quora around the WordPress topic. This person is clearly happy to be informed on what they already know, and why shouldn't they be? It's not like anyone's going out there and saying differently, at least until I found it in this case. I'm not saying we should go out and spam the forums. I am saying that this kind of thing passes for authoritative, and it isn't even close to true. Our collective voice is missing so much that the consensus known as the truth has swayed this far. It's up to us to be of value here, to take WordPress sites that are struggling under the weight of their own success and restore their viability, to reduce the problem load for these website administrators, to hold our hand out to developers whom we don't know, to eliminate duplicate or redundant work through custom workflows. Just thinking about the size of WordPress sites number, and I don't have statistics on this, but let's just say 2% of these people are unhappy about their job, their options around the stuff we've been discussing so far, have nowhere to turn, no solution, and like want to leave tech and take up farming. Like 2%, okay? 2% of this 64% is 1.28, which is about the same as the total market share here represented by Drupal. It's a ton of websites. I think that there could be a substantial number who are willing to check us out based on stabilizing WordPress websites like instantly. And there's a much bigger number than that somewhere interested, and that are somewhat interested. And then there's even more folks who are aware of the limitations of WordPress and building new sites anyway. There may be entire WordPress agencies out there struggling with this. I own a small agency, but some of you all have like hundreds of clients, right? What about the WordPress agencies? Don't you think they're done BSing their way out of these problems? I love this table, by the way. The information is courtesy of w3text.com, and it's the third time I've referred to this table in presentations for ExpressionEngine conference. Go ahead and check it out at w3text.com. The table's a lot longer on the live website. So these are Caroline's marketing ideas for ExpressionEngine. Totally up to other people to implement, but I told you I'd bring the goods, so here they are. The first one is create incentives, visibility, value, and fun around moving sites to ExpressionEngine and not limited to WordPress. Offer free licenses for submissions, tweets, attention, and fun around this. Offer prizes over and above this for contests or category winners. Did I say fun? Make it fun. Solving presumably unsolvable problems while it being fun creates magnetism, and the interest and people will show up out of thin air, and they will stay. They will give feedback. They will have add-on ideas, They will contribute and we will grow. Reward existing customers and contributors. Talk about each other, tweet about each other, or if Twitter is no longer a thing, who knows what's going on with that, do some posting that brings in your colleagues' work. What work? Add-ons. Websites, respect and adoration are free. But you do have to come forward and share your work for this to be effective. So share your work with each other. Speak loudly, purposefully, as the community about how ExpressionEngine solved tangible life problems. Excuse me. Do you wake up at 3 in the morning because your CMS got hacked? No. Add-ons not conflicting and not getting you down? Okay. Support not taking forever? Community to the rescue? Happy client moved over from WordPress? Okay, then I dare you to share this with us and with people at large. And finally, stop talking shit about WordPress or anyone else. It brings us all down. And didn't we just come out of a dynamic where this was all-consuming of our peace and trust with one another? As humans, we have a tendency to displace anger and resentment. Likely, even if you're getting revved up at WordPress, there's more to your frustration than just this. Gossip and talking shit which is the negative form of gossip, are the lowest form of human connection. It achieves so little and doesn't really achieve the venting we want out of it. If you have to share something like this, share a story. I was going to leave for lunch and then this happened, rather than a judgment. I want you to know that I visited with the Craft CMS community the week before giving this talk, and everyone is rooting for you. But we need to change our relationship with them to something a little bit more forward-thinking. They're not coming back. But just as we have an ideal WordPress replacement, they have, by its earliest definition, a deeply considered, highly effective ExpressionEngine replacement. And they're not in a competitive mindset with us in a way that we expect given all of the history. It's really just something more around growing what they have and making websites and apps better. There is a little bit of residual personal sentiment in different pockets related to when ExpressionEngine couldn't handle something, and it's being carried forward without correction in some places. It essentially comes out as gossip, but this kind of thing is no longer an empowered consensus. And we don't need each other, but I deeply believe that as communities, we're better in open cooperation. Oddly enough, I brought up this topic to nearly every single individual, one at a time, with whom I was speaking while attending the .all conference on October 6th and 7th. One or two were ready to throw down, but here's the thing. When we get the chance to talk, we get the chance to understand one another. Not a single person with whom I spoke at the time disagreed that ExpressionEngine was a better tool to stabilize WordPress sites. And they remember an old ExpressionEngine. It isn't even today's new and improved version. Craft is an advanced tool that you can't just simplify in a way that makes this kind of transition easy. It requires the command line. This is a huge paradigm shift for a developer who's used to download and install, and we can get the work done without it. So I'd like to offer this as a candidate for your consideration. Maybe this is our place in the world, and maybe it's awesome. Look, I'm not saying that we need to change EE or rebrand it as this thing or limit our focus to this forever. What I'm saying is that it's time to recognize the chances that we have to change the circumstances around ExpressionEngine, and it's up to us to really step into it. Doing this successfully, slowly, perhaps over time, will open up opportunities for ExpressionEngine that aren't yet on the table. It's not that we need to be anything different, do any one thing differently, or whatever. What we need and will develop is a stride, a pattern of speaking, of action, of problem solving, This is what will bring us back to best. Creating our own thing, a moving thing, a problem-solving thing, a helpful thing, a welcoming and inviting thing, a needed thing. This is what I have. Thanks for hearing me out. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Consider subscribing to the channel if you like to see content like this in the future. And of course, if you think this could be helpful to someone, please share it with them. That's it. Thanks for watching.